Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lifting the Lid, our free monthly webinar series where we lift the lid on strategic communication excellence. My name is Sia Papageorgiou, and I'm the director of the strategic Wherever you are in the world, I hope you and your loved ones are safe and well. Today, I am so excited to be speaking with a powerhouse of positivity and one of the most inspiring women on the planet. Best-selling author and global authority on networking, collaboration and leadership, Janine Garner. Janine has written 3 books. Her latest, Be Brilliant, How to Lead a Life of Influence, is pretty much the blueprint for anyone wanting to reignite their brilliance and to live and lead a more successful life. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. Janine says that just like a diamond with hundreds of different facets and flaws, our unique individualism can be cut and polished, and that brilliance starts with choosing to own who you are and giving yourself permission to live and lead from this space. Easier said than done, right? If you're anything like me, you sometimes suffer from imposter syndrome, confidence issues, and right now, low energy levels. So hearing your insights today, Janine, could not have come at a better time. Before we begin, just one item of housekeeping, and that is that there'll be time at the end of the chat to answer any questions you may have. My partner in crime, Marty, is going to be keeping an eye on the chat at the bottom of your screen. We all know the Zoom drill by now. So pop your questions into the chat and we'll make sure we get to them at the end of the chat. And on that note, a very big welcome to you this morning, Janine. Thank you so much for joining us and congratulations on the launch of your brilliant new book, pun intended.
Thank you so much, Sia. There's nothing more challenging. Well, actually, there are plenty more challenging things, but there's nothing more interesting to face than launching a book in the middle of a pandemic. So a huge thank you to any of you online that have supported the launch of this book. It really, I'm so grateful for your support, and it's wonderful to be here chatting with you all today. So obviously, that term brilliance is all encompassing, and there are various facets to it. And the reason why it is so important right now is because the world is moving so quickly. The only thing that is constant is yourself, quite frankly. But have you noticed how everything around us is evolving and moving quicker than ever before? Have you noticed that in spite of what we're living in, you're having to learn new skills? I think we've all become masters at managing Zoom and various online chat functions. Have you noticed that you're having to work out how to collaborate differently and how to communicate differently? And how are you feeling right now? Because for many people that I am speaking to, when we talk about this concept of brilliance, so many people are actually exhausted. They're exhausted with trying to keep up with the changes that are happening on a global scale. They're exhausted with trying to keep up with the lives of families and friends through all these social media channels. They're exhausted with trying to keep up with the pace of change, of technological change, of work change, of society change. They're exhausted with having to conform, to fit in, to do what's expected to be done. We're exhausted with trying to prove that we're good enough. We're exhausted with playing a bigger game. We're exhausted, quite frankly, with being human right now. And if I were to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, how exhausted are you feeling? How are you feeling right now? If 10 is, actually, Janine, I'm doing really good, I'm flying my flag really well, are you a 10? Are you 5 where, you know, you could do better? Or are you at a 1 where actually you're feeling so depleted and drained right now, just the sheer thought of talking about brilliance is exhausting, and actually you've done yourself a massive favor in terms of being here because you're intrigued about how to get better. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing? Just stick your number in that chat box. How are you doing? Let's see where people are at.
Oh, we've got a 1, we've got a couple of 3s, a 4, a few 7s, 6s. A bit of a mixed review.
A bit of a mixed review. Those of you that have mentioned the 7s, the 6s, the 8s, can you just chat, can you just put in the chat where you're dialing in from? It's just a really interesting read on how people are doing. Tammy, wonderful to meet you all the way from the USA. Fabulous. Melbourne. But the most interesting thing to acknowledge here is the fact that we're all feeling different levels of brilliance right now. And that really is a reflection of what is going on in the world at large and in our own worlds. The reality is that we are living in this crazy decade of disruption, where change is a constant. And the questions are many, but the answers are few. If you could just put your mute buttons on there's a couple bit of interference, that would be great. But yeah, the reality is there is so much change, and there's so much change going on at a macro level. You've got the change that's happening economically around the world. We've got the change that's happening from a health perspective around the world with the pandemic, and we've got the knock-on impact of those two big macro challenges on society and what is happening socially in terms of people's levels of income, the impact it's having on their financial security, let alone the impact it's having on mental health, etc. So there's all of these macro challenges happening, amongst which you are being asked to step up, to be your best. And the real risk right now is that if we're not careful, these feelings, any feelings of disconnection, any feelings of complexity, of uncertainty, any feelings of fear will perpetuate almost like a downward spiral. And we've got to replace disconnection with connection. We've got to replace complexity with simplicity. And we have to replace fear and anxiety with a sense of calm. The reality is that right now, you have to understand that the only thing that you have control of is yourself. And undertaking any meaningful endeavor requires each and every single one of us to be exceptional. I believe that in that amazing body and mind of yours exists the brilliance that you are searching for to unlock and to reimagine the future that you want. I believe that in your teams, for those of you that are running teams, exist the ideas and the innovations that you need to fuel the change that is needed in your business. And in your businesses exists the brilliance that will absolutely set you apart from the competition, that will give you the edge, that will absolutely guarantee that next growth plan. But to unlock brilliance, it needs us to be brave. It needs us to be curious. It needs us to step up into our spotlight, to harness our energy, to connect with intent, and to be brave enough to influence more. Because here's the thing, unless you can step into your spotlight, unless you can unlock your inner brilliance, which is about accepting your imperfections, which is about rising above your limitations, until you can accept all of the facets of who you are and bring that into everything that you do, until you can accept that about yourself, it's really hard to unlock brilliance in other people. So what I want to talk about, so I know my screen's flicking a little bit, I'll jump off and jump back on if it is, but what I want to talk about, first of all, are the barriers to your brilliance. And I believe that there are 3 distinct barriers that we need to overcome to step forward. You see, there are various things that get in the way. And the various things that get in the way often are our lack of boundaries, which fuel fatigue. It is our lack of ownership, which fuels a sense of blame. And those 2 things fuel stress. If we talk about fatigue first, I think that there are what I'm seeing as 3 levels of fatigue at play. The first level of fatigue is this one of exhaustion. It's like we're just so tired with being busy. We're just constantly busy and we're on this merry-go-round of stuff that we've got to do. Now, pre-COVID, we saw that in our organizations. We saw it in the business of life. We saw it in terms of jam-packed calendars and diaries. And what we're seeing now is still this exhaustion fatigue of this bombardment of stuff that needs to be done, whether you're working from home or whether you are trying to manage clients and suppliers by moving between offices and home. This exhaustion fatigue is very real. But the second level of fatigue is this one of stretch, where we're being pulled in so many directions. I often visualize Elastigirl in the Pixar movie The Incredibles here, where Mummy Incredible is literally this Elastigirl, and she saves the world by stretching herself between extremes of enemies and rocks and walls and whatever it is that she's trying to do to save the world. But we're doing that on a daily basis too. We're stretched between work and home, between clients and family, between what we have to do today and what we want to do tomorrow. This feeling of being stretched is exhausting. And the final fatigue is actually one of choice, in that there is so much choice right now that it's fueling our fatigue. And I get this level of choice is different depending on where you are at in the world and your level of lockdown. But if we just think about this in context of your everyday choice, most of us are having to choose between, do I go into the office? Don't I go into the office? What time do I get up? What time do I log on? Do I use Zoom? Do I use Microsoft Teams? Do I use text messaging? Do I use Messenger? Do I have a soy cappuccino, a skinny flat white? What shall I have for dinner? Do I go vegan? Do I cut down on my meat? Should I have more protein? How much exercise should I do? Should I walk? Should I go to the gym? Do I open this part of my business? Do I do that promotion? Do I go online? It's like this choice is so exhausting. And here's the thing, right? Even when we make a choice, even when you make a decision, so many of us start doubting the decision. We start questioning the decision that we've made. So fatigue is a result of us letting our boundaries go, and that does not help us become brilliant. The second thing that gets in the way of our brilliance is blame. In that we enter this blame triangle, and many of us will do this unconsciously. Now, one part of this blame triangle is where we're detracting from ourselves, and it's something else's fault as to why we are not moving forward, as to why we're incapable of making a decision, as to why we're not able to step up. The other part of the triangle is we deflect. It's someone else's fault. And this deflection onto someone else ultimately just keeps us still. It keeps us in status quo. And at worst, we become defeatist. It's my fault. I'm not good enough. I feel like an imposter. I'm constantly comparing myself to other people. I'm not smart enough. I'm not savvy enough. I can't do this. And that blame, that lack of ownership keeps you still. And then fatigue plus blame fuels the stress. It fuels the stress and the anxiety around not achieving your dreams, around not unlocking your potential, around being frustrated, around questioning your relevance and what's next. So the question I have, and I'm going to throw this back at Sia, is what is getting in the way of your brilliance right now? Is it fatigue? Is it blame? Is it stress? Is it all of the above?
For me right now, Janine, it's all of the above, a little bit of everything, okay? And as I, read that, those three areas in your book, they all resonated with me. And particularly in Melbourne right now, I was actually just talking to a friend of mine this morning, and she's 38 weeks pregnant. And we were saying, she's based in Melbourne as well. Obviously, as you know, we're still on lockdown. And we were saying to one another how during the first wave, the first lockdown, the concept of being at home was new. People didn't have to commute to the office anymore. We enjoyed the time with our families. We enjoyed the slowing down of life. Obviously, people that work on the front line, and particularly in my profession, the communication profession, where everybody is out there sending messages, making sure employees and stakeholders and shareholders are well informed about what's going on. But we're in a position right now when we're running on empty. We are just absolutely exhausted. But going back to what I said earlier about imposter syndrome, it's really easy. And, you know, that's my go-to place. I can't do that. You know, and I read something in your book that really resonated with me. And that was the story about Mildred, the orangutan. And I'm sure you'll go into that later. But those voices, they come, you know, get into your ear. Oh, what are you doing that for? Who do you think you are? You can't do that. You know, you're not. So I think for me, it's all of those things at one time or another. But right now, particularly fatigue. I'm just like that's the truth. I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, and I'm sure we've got a lot of people here talking about stress. It could be the fatigue, like you're experiencing, Sia. It could be, you know, when those voices in your head start telling you you're not good enough. That's that top of that triangle. The biggest thing to appreciate and understand is that it is a normal human reaction that we take on too much, that we let our boundaries slip, that when we don't feel we're good enough, our natural instinct is to externalize it or to blame ourselves. And the fueling of the stress ultimately stops you. It stops you in your tracks. It stops you moving forward. You feel contained and constrained. And my mission right now is to move past that, is to help people unlock that. Because I'm on this mission to unleash brilliance in 10 million people across over the next 10 years. Because I know that when each and every single one of you online right now unlock your brilliance, that when you're able to step into that space of shining and being your best, then the multiplier effect, the ripple effect on the people that you connect with, the people that you talk to, the people that are watching you is contagious. And that is why we need to, more than ever right now, dig deep to understand, how do I become better? Now, brilliance isn't about, you know, going from here to here overnight. I was working with a client yesterday who's in Melbourne, and she literally was, oh my gosh, she's in such a low place. She's equally fatigued, and she's just like it feels like the rest of the world, the rest of Australia is against us at the moment. And we were talking about this concept of brilliance. And one of the things I said to her was this ability to actually surrender to what you're doing, to understand where you're at, and most importantly, to take ownership about what you do next. And that's what I want to share with you today, some tips and tools to help you wherever you're at to move forward 1%. To move forward 2%, not move forward 90%, because there are so many things in our world right now that we have no control over. Yeah. We have no control over it. But the one thing that you do have control over is you, is how you're responding, is what you are doing, and how you're operating at your best.
The thing, Janine, that pops out in my mind right now is that and I'm guilty of this as well. People confuse brilliance with perfection. Okay, so they think that to be brilliant, I have to be perfect at everything. And I think one thing that really resonated with me as I was reading your book was that all we need to do, and again, it's you know, easier said than done, but we have to give ourselves permission, right? Once we give ourselves permission, the road to becoming brilliant becomes easier.
Absolutely. It's giving yourself permission to take that one step forward. You know, one of the things I talk about is this. It's the fact that brilliance is a choice. It's up to you to choose to stay still, to stay in that, I call it the itchy jacket zone, that place where it just doesn't feel right. The place where you go, I know I shouldn't be feeling like this. I'm so fed up of feeling tired. I'm so fed up of being angry at the world. I'm so fed up of not getting that promotion, of not being happy. I'm so fed up of just not being you. All of us get that point. And it doesn't matter whether you are a leader in your family, whether you are a leader of a team, whether you're a leader of an organization, whether you're a leader in a community. Part of our evolution and continuous growth is we reach these points where we're really good, but we've just lost the happiness, we've just lost the spirit, we've just lost the fire, and we know there's something more. And this is exactly why I wrote the book, Sia, because it was like, if I can codify this difference between sitting still in that zone and just going, oh, this is it, to actually going, I know there's more, then that is why this book is a handbook to help people. And the laws that I talk about in the book have really been garnered from talking to incredible leaders, business owners, coaches, industry experts, athletes, this tipping point between strive and prove and exhaustion and fatigue and stress and just unhappy, to this point of, I'm back in control. I'm back in control. And so I say brilliance is a choice. It's a decision to go, what choice am I going to make next? It's also a practice. It's not, as Sia said, that overnight you go, I'm going to be brilliant, and suddenly you're like amazing. It's actually like learning to do yoga, or learning to meditate, or learning to change your diet, or trying to give something up. It's a continuous practice and a reflection of what's working and what's not working. Am I happy? Am I unhappy? Why am I exhausted? Have I let those boundaries go again? What do I need to recorrect? And it's a discipline. It's a preparedness and intentionality to try and be your best every single day. Now, in the book, Sia asked me to share these 4 laws of brilliance. And in the book, I talk about these 4 laws, and we're going to focus in on one in particular. But the 4 laws essentially start with, you cannot lead other people. And when I talk a lot about leadership, it's not just about in business. You cannot lead your family, your friends, your community, your colleagues, your suppliers until you start leading yourself. Something will always get in the way. Something will always get in the way. The enemy to your success is always within. The enemy is always within. So you'll see here that the first 2 laws are very much about yourself. It's about you owning who you are and stepping into that spotlight of owning your strengths, plus the jiggly bits, plus the stuff that you'd rather hide, owning your story to hear, and understanding that the person that you are is unique. The skills that you have are your skills. The problem that you solve, your reason for being on this planet is your reason for being on this planet. And if you can own that and take control of the focus and step into that spotlight, it allows you to fuel your belief and fuel your visibility outside of your own sphere. That's law number 1. Law number 2, which we will delve deeper on, is being ready. It's essentially about harnessing your energy. You can have all the dreams and vision in the world, but if you're exhausted, if you're walking around like a robot instead of this wonderful human being of possibility, then you're not functioning at your best and you're not being brilliant at all. You're just existing. So law number 2 is about how do you fuel yourself up? How do you power yourself up to make sure that every day you're functioning at your best? We then move the focus externally to other people. And law number 3 talks about the importance of others, about being together, about connecting with intent. We cannot be successful alone. We need people around us in our network. We need to engage with the right people. We need to collaborate with the right people to help us achieve what it is that we want to achieve. And finally, law number 4 is about being heard. It's about magnifying your influence. And by doing that, amplifying the people around you and continuing to grow. So we haven't got time to go through all 4 today, but Sia's asked me to particularly focus on this law number 2. Absolutely. So if you've got a piece of paper, just grab one. What I want you to think about here, so as I said, law number 2 is about harnessing your energy. And if we were to think about this, if you were to go, how am I doing right now in terms of my energy? We touched on this at the beginning, but if we were to have a almost like a little graph to plonk yourself, if we have a horizontal axis of time poor, just make that a little bit smaller. Time poor to time rich, horizontally. And then vertically, we've got surviving to thriving. Which quadrant are you in? If you had to put a dot somewhere on that little graph, where are you? Are you in position 1? Are you closer to position 2, position 3, or position 4? Where would you place yourself right now? Let's put a number in this chat box. And Marty, maybe you can just share with me the majority, where the majority of people are at, or if they're all over the place. What do you reckon the majority is? Looks like 3s to me. Yeah, I think when we look at that, the majority of people are in 3. Now let's just delve a little bit further, because it's all well and good drawing a line in the sand, but part of this law is taking ownership of what it is that you have to do next. When COVID hit here in Australia, that first month for me, I went massively into attention out mode. I was helping my clients. I felt like I was online 24/7, really supporting the people around me. And there was a moment, probably 6, 7, 8 weeks in, my personal business tanked. My speaking revenue, all the speaking cancelled, all my international conferences cancelled, my corporate clients cancelled their work. So personally, my business tanked in those first few weeks, and my energy was all out. And on top of that, I also have got 3 children and a husband and cats and dogs. I was doing what you do as a mom, where you put all your energy into everyone around you. And there was a moment, I would listen to some news, and I got in the shower, turned the tap on, and like this overwhelming just emotion hit me. And I literally collapsed in the shower in tears. I had tears pouring down my face. And I was so sad at what was going on. I was sad for my kids. I was sad for my clients. I was sad for people I didn't even know. I was just sad for what was going on. And I couldn't see a way out. I was like, oh my God, like I spent my entire career building my business. What on earth is it going to look like? And it was this overwhelming exhaustion, sadness, etc. When I sort of got out of the shower and I had a cup of coffee, I pulled out this model. So the IP that I share with the world, I do on myself. And what I'm doing with you now, I did on myself for this entire model. And what became apparent for me is I had to focus on law number 2. I knew what my vision was. I knew I've got a great network. I speak my piece, I write, I'm on podcasts, I'm happy to share what I think, but I'd forgotten to look after myself. And because I'd forgotten to look after myself, my energy was depleted, my brain was depleted, and hence this emotion that I was on. And so I had to focus on recorrecting this law number 2. So I drew the line in the sand like we've done, and then I went, okay, which specific area of it is it? So what I want you to do now, well, let's use like the traffic light system, where essentially if things are really bad and it's not working at all, you got to look at it, it's a red. If things are doing okay, but you could put a bit more effort in, it's a green. And if it's actually, Janine, I'm totally on fire, I've got nothing to worry about there, it's a green. I think I said green instead of orange. So basically red, rubbish, I need to put in some effort there. Orange, it's okay, but I could work a bit harder. And green, I'm on fire, I don't need to worry about it. Let's think about mindset first. So how are you feeling? How are you thinking right now about the future or about today? Are you actually feeling quite positive? And you can see possibility. and you're fueled with hope. And whilst everything around you feels a bit crazy, you've actually got belief in yourself and belief in possibility and belief in what's happening. If that is so, I want you to put a green. I want you to write green in the chat box. If you're going, Janine, I just can't be bothered. Like my client yesterday, I'm over it. I'm so over this right now. Everything, everywhere, everything, everyone, it's just awful. I just can't see a way out. You're a red. And if you're somewhere in between an orange, so can you please put green, red, or orange? And then I want to try and get a feel for what the average, the majority of people are saying.
Lots of greens.
Awesome. So let's just, for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to put a green there. All right. Let's now think about, so you've got your mindset strong. What about energy? Who is it that just put at the top? Green but tired. Okay. Veronica, and I think somebody else said it, Natalie. So stamina, your energy, the fuel that keeps you going. Like, do you wake, are you jumping out of bed in the morning and you're feeling energized and you're ready to take on the world and nothing can stop you, green? Or are you like dragging yourself out of bed? It's like Groundhog Day, here we go again. And it's almost like you need multiple cups of coffee and you're turning on your smile when you're online, but deep down you're feeling flat. It's a red, or are you somewhere in between? How are we doing and what's the average? What do you reckon, Sia? What's coming up?
A couple of oranges.
Oh, no, orange, red.
Greens, one red. Ooh, Diana, red.
So I might just put, I think it's looking like, yeah, I'm doing, it's almost like I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay, but God, I could get better. Like we're recognizing that there's more to do. All right, final one, behavior or habits. Now, if you look back to me again, that day in the shower, I totally let all my habits go. So my mindset was strong. Actually, I was very orange, like I knew what I needed to do to turn it on for the day. But what I realized is I'd let all of my disciplines go from my day, of sleep, of diet, of exercise, of meditation, all the stuff that I know makes sure that like a car, I'm fueling up. So thinking about the things that work for you, the stuff that brings you joy, the habits that fuel your energy and your stamina and your mindset. Are you being disciplined with those? Green, orange, shit, yeah, I've let a few of them go and I need to, that's probably the lever I need to shift. Or red, I've just stopped doing everything. Where are you at? So it's looking orange to red. Would that be fair?
Mostly, yep.
Yeah, so do you see how this very simple exercise gives you a great read immediately on where you need to focus? So when I did this, my behavior was totally red. So I had to spend the next bit of time working on that. Does this make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So come back to this. Like I use this tool on a very regular basis to look at, remember, brilliance is a practice. So I use this tool to go, which law specifically do I need to work on right now? Which is the one that's got more reds than the others? And that's why it's a constant evolution piece. What I want to share with you are now some tips. I want to give you some ideas and some tips of how to fuel that energy. And as I'm talking through these, switch on your ears to getting curious about which one particularly resonates. Because at the end, I'd love our discussion to be around, okay, where are you going to refocus? I want to make sure this time that we spent together is really useful for you, in that you leave with a plan of how to step up on that energy, of how to harness the incredible person that you are as you're all navigating through these next few weeks. Does that sound good?
That sounds like a perfect plan.
Awesome. Okay, so being exhausted isn't leadership. Being exhausted isn't inspiring to other people. Being exhausted isn't brilliant at all. And if you want to become your brilliant self, you have to realize that you are human, that you have to make tough choices, and that you have to make decisions that are right for you to ensure you are doing your best work. And when I talk about work, I'm talking about the best human, the best manager, the best parent, the best friend, the best lover, the best mother. If you want to be the best version of you, you have to look after yourself. You have to function at your best, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So the first thing I want you to think about is who and what are you letting into your world? Imagine you're surrounded by this beautiful bubble. And you could say this is a little bit of positive delusion, but hey, I don't really care, because I trade in energy. I believe that we only have so much energy to give out and only so much energy that we can take in. And I actively choose to make sure I only ever let into my bubble positive energy. I don't want to waste it. And yet we are surrounded with negativity right now. We're surrounded with negative media, with fearful commentary, with social media feeds and influencers that if we're feeling crappy about ourselves, it fuels that feeling of crappiness. And we're surrounded by people that are just negative Nellies. You've got a bubble around you. And I think the first part of managing your energy is to ensure that you are very careful about who you let into your bubble. Who and what do you let into your bubble? Who and what makes you feel good? And who and what makes you feel pretty yucky? That day when I got out of the shower and I did this exercise, I realized I had to switch off certain news channels. I had to unfriend certain people on social media. I had to stop seeing and taking phone calls from some people, because the continuing negative commentary was actually making me feel low, versus bringing into my bubble people that saw hope and were inspiring and could fuel possibility. Again, this is an ownership piece. It's up to you who you let into your bubble. So first of all, manage your inputs. The flip side of that is manage the output too. You know, human beings, every single one of us wants to feel like we're doing work worth doing. Every single one of us wants to feel like every day has mattered. Every single one of us wants to feel like we have done something purposeful. Don't we? Would you agree, Sia?
Absolutely, for sure.
And those days where it's just drudgery, where it's just clearing off emails, where you feel like you're not being productive, whatever productive is for you, is not fueling your energy. So get curious as to what you are doing every day. Be purposeful in terms of ensuring that you are doing something that matters to you, that is contributing to the work that you are doing. Is it writing an article, posting a video, making a phone call, cooking dinner, learning to paint, whatever it is? Find something that you are being purposeful with and see your energy just start climbing. Because when we're just existing, we just feel like a robot, versus when we're doing something, we feel amazing. And again, this is what I had to cope with. As you can imagine, you know, as I said, all my clients like cancel, all the work, cancel. I wasn't feeling particularly purposeful. And what I had to think about is, okay, what can I control? I can control who I talk to. I can control awesome conversations like with Sia. I can control what I'm committing to doing. I can control and doing what I'm doing today, like passing on what I believe. That's my purposeful piece.
Janine, can I just butt in there for a sec? I think you make a good point in your book as well. I think there's an activity at the end of this law where you encourage readers to make a list of those things so you can manage your outputs.
Yeah.
strategically and say, okay, well, for this week or for today, these are the 2 things I'm going to do today to be more purposeful and focus on. I think that was a good tip, yeah, because it keeps you on track.
Yeah. And it just feels like you're getting through some stuff. Again, with my client yesterday, it was exactly the same conversation. What is the one thing you need to do today? You want to do today, not need, want to do today. Let's do that. How are you feeling at the end of the day was my text. I'm feeling awesome. Yes, because you've done something versus getting lost in the quagmire of stuff. The third thing, the third tip to harnessing your energy is manage your sanctuary. You know, for so many of us around the world, our sanctuary is our home. And our sanctuary has been overtaken with work, with Zoom calls, with to-do lists, with people contacting us at all times of the day. For some of us, our sanctuary was the commute to and from work. For some of us, our sanctuary is the dropping off of children at school and being able to pick up a coffee or walk in a park with a friend. For some of us, the sanctuary is the gym or the walk by the ocean. Like, your sanctuary, do not underestimate the impact of the world right now and how that is impacting your sanctuary. But your sanctuary matters. The sanctuary is where you rejuvenate. It's where you get a chance to think. It's where you have the opportunity to explore what's going on for yourself and what tomorrow could bring. So my advice is find your sanctuary. If you're in lockdown, like those of you in Melbourne, find a little spot in the house. Find a spot in the garden. Just find a spot where you can be on your own and you can rejuvenate. Someone said to me when I was sharing this content a few weeks ago, that feels really selfish, Janine. I said, it's selfish not to find your sanctuary. It's actually selfish not to take yourself away from the world for a little bit, away from your children, your team, offline, and just rejuvenate. Just ensure that you're going to be at your best. So you've got to manage your sanctuary. You've got to be really purposeful about this when the world around us is putting so many rules and restrictions on where our sanctuary can be. So I have a chair in my bedroom that's my sanctuary under a big potted plant. There's a candle there, there's my journal, and that's where I take myself for 10 minutes if I want to just meditate and chill out. So where's your sanctuary? The fourth piece of managing your energy is actually, what are you committing to? Here's the thing, right? Everything that you say yes to has a cost. And there's an opportunity cost associated with every yes. Darren Hardy is the publisher of Success magazine. He's a wonderful thought leader in the US. And he says, success is not about what you do. When it comes down to comparing super achievers with everyone else, it actually has less to do with what they do and more to do with what they don't do. More to do with what they don't do. And yet so many of us say yes, 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 yes. And suddenly that time that we thought we had has been eaten into by so many other things. Everything you say yes to costs either money or time or energy or focus. So if you say yes to the wrong thing, it's going to cost time, money, energy, and focus. And much like economics, the investment there means that there is not the same investment in something else. Every yes has a cost. And so part of managing your energy is to really understand what you need to say yes to and what you need to say no to. Understanding that every decision has its trade-off. See, so many of us say yes because of what we think could possibly come. We say yes to doing things for free, to contra deals, to the possibility of something that might appear in the future. And we put in our energy, our focus, our time on that stuff based on a promise. And our focus, energy, time on that takes away our focus from the very thing that we really should be doing. And much like yin and yang and black and white and stop and go, every yes has a cost. So part of managing your energy is about getting stronger on what you say no to. And what I do, one of the tools I teach my team and my clients to do is to decide on their decision triage for that moment in time. And here's how it works. If you think about what your overarching objective is, which could be getting through to Christmas, which could be making X amount of money, which could be keeping my family sane, which could be growing my business, whatever it is, what is the overarching objective? Now, thinking about that overarching objective, think about what are the 3 critical questions that you have to get a yes to for you to move forward. If there are any no's, you don't do it. So for example, let's imagine that you are a business and you've been asked to sponsor a trade show, and you're in the business of business growth. Your questions could be, for example, does this decision lead to sales opportunities? Question number 1. Question number 2 could be, does this decision support the time that I need to invest in getting to my bigger vision? Question number 3 could be, does this decision involve working with people I like? So does it generate sales? Is it a good investment in time in terms of my future goals and where I want to get to? And question number 3, sorry, I was flicking for some reason. Question number 3, is it working with people that I want to work with? And so I use this decision triage to ask to take the time before I say yes or no, to go through my questions and go yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And only if it's 3 yeses do I move forward. Could be a useful tool as you start trying to work out this opportunity cost of yes or no and managing your time effectively. And the final thing that I want you to think about is this concept of investing in the things that ensure that you are maximizing your time in green brain state. Now, there's a wonderful psychologist and author, a guy called Rick Hanson, and he has described the brain as having 3 states. It has the red brain state, this state of stress. I'm just going to pull up my iPad and draw this for those of you. 2 seconds. Da, da, da. Yeah, so we have, here we go. Let me just flick to here. All right, so there is the red brain state. A place of tunnel vision, of muscle tension, of judgmental thinking, of narrow point of view. And that red brain state is absolutely one of high stress. It's a state that is fueled by things like a lack of sleep, by things like running ourselves on empty, by being mentally drained and physically drained, by being in overwhelm. And that place of red brain means that it's really hard to operate at your peak, which is probably what you're feeling right now, Sia, when you said, I'm depleted, I'm drained. You're in red brain state because it's hard to think clearly. Now, as you will appreciate, the middle point is orange. It's almost like status quo. It's almost, I'm doing okay. But what we want to try and get to, what we want to work hard on, is getting to this place of green brain state. This is a place of calmness, of being in control, of being able to think clearly. And it's where you've got this wonderful balance of cortisol and adrenaline, which actually those have reduced so that the happy hormone, oxytocin, is kicking in. Now, the beautiful thing about green brain state is you can think clearly. You've got clarity. You're not reacting. You're not judgmental. You're feeling positive. And the only way to get in green brain state is to make sure that you are adopting the right habits to get there. So you won't be in green brain all the time. It's life that we step over to stress or step over to orange brain or red brain state. But what you need to be able to do is identify what are the habits for you that allow you to move into here, which is why behaviors and habits are so important, which is why establishing these daily habits is critical. So your ability to function at your best relies on your ability to manage your inputs, to manage your outputs, to protect and manage your sanctuary, to say no more than you say yes, and make sure you're focused on what you say yes to, and do what you need to do from a daily habit perspective to keep in this green brain state. That's how you function at your best, how you move from surviving into thriving, and how you're able to move from being time poor to time rich, how you're able to step into that box number 1 of that first analysis that we did. It's all about you taking ownership, you resetting your boundaries, and you understanding that you don't want to be a robot. You want to be a human of extraordinary potential. You want to function at your best to drive change for yourself, for your team, for the people around you.
Absolutely. Janine, that was electrifying, and you absolutely do trade in energy. I think you've given us so much food for thought and so many fantastic tips. You know, just reflecting on what you were saying about the 3 facets of harnessing your energy, so stamina, mindset, and habits. You know, I think personally, most of the time I'm in the right mindset, and I try and be really positive, and I try and silence those, you know, that inner voice. And I remember reading something in your book that really resonated with me about reframing what you can and can't do. And I think you mentioned a business leader who you know, asks their team every day or every week, what have you failed at this week? Which I just really powerful, because can you imagine going to work and asking your team, what have you failed at, to reframe that conversation and to change the mindset. And also Carol Dweck, who most of us would know, the psychologist, in her book, instead of failing students, she marked them as a not yet, okay, which again, reframe. Well, I just thought they were lovely stories, and, you know, really resonated with me. For me personally, out of those 3 facets, what I'm going to commit to working on is stamina, absolutely, because as I said at the beginning, I feel like I'm running on empty most of the time. I'm a really positive person, and I try and, you know, do good things, but sometimes you just, you know, I was exhausted before COVID, and as a communication professional, I have worked my butt off in the last 7 months. And so I'm ready for a holiday, but I absolutely agree with you. Those habits, we have to be really deliberate. We can't, it's not going to be the sky. We have to be really deliberate about how we cultivate our own brilliance and give ourselves permission to do that. So that was amazing. Now, we've got probably 4 or 5 minutes left. Are there any questions from any of the participants today? Marty, did anyone post any questions? Or were they all hypnotised by Janine's brilliance?
I think they were hypnotised by Janine's brilliance.
I love Carrie said, I recognise and refocus on taking action and moving to green. I love that, Carrie.
Yes, is that Carrie Hawkins?
I've got a question. I've got a question.
Go, Marty.
Janine. Just regarding no, I mean, saying yes is something, and saying no is something I'm really bad at. And even when I do say no, I just sort of churn up with guilt whenever that happens. So I sort of feel that the saying yes is embedded in our psyches, that, you know, we feel obliged to say yes because it's about relationship management, etc. So what is it? I mean, any tips to sort of be able to say no without that sense of guilt, even after you've gone through the triage process and you know that no is the right answer for you? Like, it's just, just sort of how to say no, how to combat that sense of guilt that you sort of feel if you end up saying no to someone.
Okay, can I ask, where does the guilt come from? What are you feeling guilty about?
Letting someone down, I think. It just kind of, because I sort of start questioning, well, can I do that? Can't I do that? And then I just really feel bad that I've let someone down. I don't like letting people down. So that's probably where that...
So if you say yes to multiple things, what is the risk?
You're going to let more people down.
And this is the thing, right? We've got to know. No is one of the hardest words. It's a 2-letter word, and yet it's one of the words in the British English language that we find so hard to say. And the reframe, Marty, is about getting clear on what the cost of that yes is. So let's imagine you're in an organization and your bosses, you've agreed on a strategy and you've agreed on a whole heap of tasks. The reality is you only have so much time in a day. And then something new lands on your desk. The courageous piece is to go, I'm really happy to do this, but it's going to take X amount of time. Which bit of what we've already agreed that I should be doing can be put off for a bit later? So together and collectively, you're working out priorities, because if you have too much to do, there will come a point where you're not doing anything well. You do let people down, and actually you let yourself down. With requests in, so I get a whole heap of people asking, can I do X, Y, or Z? Again, I use the triage, and I'll often say, yeah, really love to, but I actually don't have time right now. Is this something we can do on X date? So delaying the yes is another strategy. And quite frankly, if there is something where you go, so I've got, you know, I'll let you into a bit of my life now. Yeah, there are some people in my world that for many years I would say yes to because I felt I should go to that event. I should do this. I would come back and I would literally feel drained from that conversation. And I went, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm not getting anything. I don't feel great about this meeting, this connection, this event. So I've got pretty disciplined now of going, say no. Because for me, one of my big measures is I need time to rejuvenate. I want time with my family. It is about hanging out together. So if I commit too much in my calendar, the cost of doing too much and saying yes to too much external stuff is the one thing that fuels me. My family gets depleted. So you've got to take ownership of you, your life, your choices, your boundaries. Too many yeses fuel fatigue. Too many yeses means you're not doing things right. You start doubting yourself. You worry about letting yourself down, and then that stress kicks in, and suddenly your opportunity to be brilliant has taken a step back. So it's all about ownership.
Yeah. We actually have a question here from Veronica. Can we please repeat the 3 questions on the triangle?
Yeah, of course. Oh, well, I just made that up. Let me get back to the slide and I'll pull it up for you lovely people. So there's the decision triangle. Now, what you need to do is think about what's really important to you right now. So for me, for example, Friday nights at home are really important. It's the time where, as a family, I've got 3 teenagers. It's the time when we're all at home. We'll usually get takeaway and we'll usually watch TV. And for me, it fuels my soul. So my decision triage with that is this a Friday night decision? Yes, no. Is this a decision that will fuel my business, or is it something that is about giving back to my network? Yes, no. Is this worth me taking the time out? Yes, no. And I will literally pause before I say yes, and I'll look at this decision triage. And the point here, Veronica, is the questions have to be important to you. They have to help you with your decision making. And you have to be able to say yes or no. And only if you can say yes to each 3 questions does it become the ultimate yes. But if you're a yes, no, not sure, just say no, not yet. Does that make sense, Veronica?
Yeah, she's
okay. I can't. There's so many people on screen I can't even see, Veronica, but awesome.
Perfect. All right, we're going to have to leave it there, though. I just want to do a quick plug for Janine's book because somebody in the chat asked what it was called. It's called Be Brilliant, How to Lead a Life of Influence. We'll package everything up for you today, and I'll be sending out the recording plus Janine's slides sometime later today. Janine, a massive thank you once again. That was electrifying. I feel fantastic already. Some great comments in the chat. People are saying how timely it is and they needed to hear it. So thank you so much for sharing your talent with us today. Really, really appreciate it. A big thank you to everybody for joining us all around the world. Again, get everything out to you later today. I just want a quick plug for my next Lifting the Lid with Amanda Dennett, who is the Head of Digital Experience at the Australian War Memorial. She's also the President of the International Association of Business Communicators in Canberra. We're going to be talking about social media best practice in 2020. That's sure to be a really interesting conversation as well. Please get in touch if you have any feedback about today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. On that note, we'll call it a day. Thank you so much. Stay safe and well, and see you next time. Thank you so much, Janine.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.